Live tonight on American Zombie. Like, say what's up to everybody. Got the link pinned to the top of the chat. One of the deepest questions ever to be asked is, where do we go? What comes next? Right? What comes next? This is something that people have asked for ages on end. The ultimate question, right? We might get a little hint, which I'm working on for human origins, of where we come from, how we came to be. We'll never have the full answer, but we'll get further on that question, on answering that question, than we will on the question, where do we go? What are we here for? That's the middle question, the middle way. Where do we come from? What are we here for? What comes next? Where are we going? And the question of where are we going has a lot to do with, in a way, to many, how we are living, how we lived the life that we are in right now. Could that be have some type of bearing on where we're going? And the evolutionist and materialist and people who basically the atheist who for some reason have been traumatized into thinking that there is no purpose, I think, hide from the question. I think it's fear. It's fear because you there has to be a destination when you think about certain things logically, reasonably. You start to say to yourself, why would there be no reason? Why would there be no reason? So when somebody says, "Oh, there's no reason," right? There's no reason. It's just that's it. You have what you have, and when you close your eyes, it's done. That's it. What? Why so much memory then? Why so many deja vu type experiences? The technology, the past, the present, the future. I mean, so many things. It just seems like it seems like an awful waste to have something so special and precious just be disintegrated with time. That doesn't make sense, that this would not be recorded. The fact that we have things recorded as well. What comes next? We see that from looking at the past and people that have passed during our living lifespans, right? And we're going forward. And we wonder what happened next for that person, for these people that aren't here right now. What happened? Did it stop right there at that moment? The physical we see eventually expires. We do see that the physical expires. And this is a hard conversation to have. A lot of people don't want to have this conversation. And it makes me concerned because I'm saying, wait a second, we're flying somewhere on an airplane and it's going to land, but nobody cares about speculating or trying to come to a reasonable conclusion of where the plane might land. Where are we going to? Where's the train? If it is an analogy of us being on a train, on a trip, where does it stop? Where does it stop? We turn around, somebody that was on the train isn't on the train anymore. Where did they go? And it's as if people have a type of amnesia. They don't want to know. It really, at that point, it seems, it starts to feel kind of Truman Showish. It really does. Because you say to yourself, this is an important question. Why doesn't anybody really want to talk about it? The evolutionist just, you talk about doomerism, that's basically evolutionism. To think that, that's it, nothing happened by chance, didn't have no meaning. So whatever you do, whatever it's been done, they can exonerate those crimes by just saying evolution did it, the magic wand. But for people who think and who say to themselves, wait a second, this has to go a bit deeper. This wouldn't just happen for nothing. And then to think of the lives of our family members that we've been told about, pictures of grandparents and great grandparents. I think about that like, wow, all this record, all of the way you look at some people, they look at something that they had when they were younger, when they're at a very old age, over half a century. So if they have had something that is 50 years old, half a century old, some people even then don't see the value in it because they're kind of like just going through life unaware. But if you are aware, you start to see the value in it. You start to look back and say, wow, that was a moment in time. It was a moment that was created during something that seems to always be flowing, never stopping. So it's like putting a pen or a pencil on a piece of paper that's moving. Somebody's pulling the paper backwards. And that's the moving moment going back into the past. So if you put the pen down, it will make a streak on the paper because the paper is continuously being pulled backwards. Kind of like those graphs, lie detector machines, graphs that chart certain rhythms from the body, and it'll have a piece of paper moving as a squiggly line is created from the readings that it's getting. That's like life. That's like we're walking through this, and when we write something down and we see it from when we were younger, we say, wow, that was a writing. That was something. That was the pen that was put on the paper. And it's as if the paper's being pulled along by time. And what you write on that paper is actually being printed in time at that moment that passed. So where is that moment now? It makes me wonder, where is the moment? When I wrote something down 25 years ago, where is that moment? There's evidence that that moment existed from what I wrote, from memory of remembering the time. This is why these experiments are very important to knowing where we're at right now. To say, okay, if we did an experiment right now and we tried to chart every single thing in detail as best we could, the temperature, the humidity, the feeling that we have, the smell, the air, every little tiny detail, blood pressure, all type of stuff, and saying, wow, okay, this is charted. EKG machines and stuff like that do that very well too. And we will say, okay, so the blood pressure is continuously changing through this thing called the forward movement in time, which is what I think is the forward movement in time. Going towards what? This forward movement in time is going toward a physical end. The big question is, does it end totally there? Of course, it doesn't seem that way because of transformation. So what is transformed? We see the physical is transformed into different type of elements that could be used to nourish something else organic. We see the body has a way of doing that, decomposing. But what about the mental? What about the feeling? Is there different categories to the mental when we look at feeling? We say, okay, we have the feeling part, we have the thinking part. And, the thinking, is that separate from the knowing? And the knowing, we know, is separate from the wisdom, because you can know a lot of stuff, but to know whether or not to use it, that's where the wisdom comes in. Knowing what to say is what a smart person knows. They know what to say. But wisdom is being wise enough, is knowing whether or not to say it. So having the answer is just a part of the equation. Knowing whether or not to reveal the answer, that's where it gets kind of deep. Brian zombified, holy smokes. Kind of explaining remote viewing. I think remote viewing's a little different. Remote viewing can be done in two ways. It can be done in a way where you sit and you think of something in an area and try to figure it out, um, without knowing about that area. So now you're doing just straight cold remote, just thinking, using your powers of perception, which people have become, they say, very good at, being able to picture out certain areas, give detailed descriptions, have people draw what they saw, and even in some cases they say that they've been confirmed. Then there is a simple way to see remote viewing, which could be looked at as memory remote viewing, is places you've been to. You can think, you can see the shelves on certain stores that you've been into. You can even remote view through time. That's another type, to think back and to try to put together every detail that you can remember from when you were younger, or from an incident that happened that for some reason you can remember clear. And the more you remember, the more you might seem to be able to put more pieces together and say, oh, yeah, so, oh, I remember another detail from that. And if you have a picture, now that brings it to another level. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, because if you just sit there and think and contemplate, who knows how deep you can go into thinking. D4 says, another situation today. Wow. Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby, man. This is hilarious. Ice, ice, baby. And I did hear about something with that. I was going to do like a vanilla ice type of thing. Wow. That's something. Seems like I got a troll here. All right, who is it? Gigi? Gigi's right. Okay, Gigi, who are you?
Yeah, was,
Have you been here before?
yo, bro, long time, bro, from the other channel,
Which channel's that?
from Dictionary, and you had
And
Jake and everybody on. You deleted the shit, bro.
we can't curse on here,
Oh,
so
my bad, bro. My bad, my bad, my bad, my bad, my bad.
um, yeah. So what?
I'm just vibing out. I'm chilling. I'm drinking a little bit. Pardon me. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
no,
my
that's
phone is. I just wanted to just say something real quick because my phone was on like 5%, but I just wanted to get it out. I was gonna say what you were describing sounds like remote viewing, and how from what I've like watched and learned about so far, I haven't really like sat down and really watched a whole video completely, but um it's basically it's kind of like time traveling, and they talk about like the Vatican and people who were able. There's this one guy that they said he was notorious for like he perfected it to where he could basically travel in time, like he could time travel and go and see things and smell smells and see people who were long gone, and he was like basically using it to his advantage. I'm not sure if the guy, but there's a video on YouTube about him when you search up remote viewing, and it basically describes this guy who um I don't know if he was a priest or something, and it was about how he was able to communicate with his dead relative or something. Like he went to a certain location and it gave him a frequency, and with that frequency he just like, I guess he tapped into it, and then it became like he started meditating and like working it more, and then he got to the point where he could go into like time and see historical events. And they were apparently, I guess, word got out and I think they banned him or killed him or something. But yeah,
And
what you were saying,
you don't remember who it is,
I
the
don't
name.
remember who I don't remember who it is. But if you type in a remote viewing in the search bar, there's
Mhm.
like they have like one of those like old time sketches of him, and I think he's like a priest or something. But to, the way they explain remote viewing, they basically bring him up in every video, so they could so it could. I'm sorry. So you could so the viewer can understand what the concept is. He's like the godfather of it. Like they basically bring him up to explain to us how it works. And
And how long ago? Like, how old is this guy? You think? Like when did you
I
see
don't
it?
even know. I don't know. I know it's always like it's like one of those like Michelangelo sketches. Every time I see the thumbnails, it's
Hmm.
always this like Michelangelo. They always have like different poses and pictures of him, but
Hmm.
every time like any video you click on, it
Hmm.
kind of starts from the beginning with that guy, and they basically like explain through his experience how remote viewing is. It's like talking about like astral projection, but
Hmm.
they basically give you a person to I guess to cling on to so you can understand how the process works. And they said he was nice with it, man, to the point where he was like he was time traveling, you know.
Hmm.
And
Um,
and he would go and
so
have
this is you.
experiences.
This is you
Huh?
in the chat. The dealership on Fig.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does that mean? The dealership on Fig.
No, this is just like a troll. This like not a troll account, but it's like this is one of my like whatever account. I just be bullshitting on this one. This is not my main. I haven't even I just be bullshitting on this account.
Yeah, we try to not to say the
Oh,
curse.
bro, my bad. I'm so sorry, MD. I keep my
Yeah.
language, man. My language. My bad, bro.
Yeah, it sounds like I typed in something. Dwight Longnecker is a
Yeah,
priest, they said, who saw
yeah.
dead people. Is that the guy?
That's him. That's him. And you see it like he has like a priest. Like, it's like a sketch, right?
No, they don't have a picture. It came up for the it came up just on the AI typed in. It says based on the provided search results, there's no
That's him.
widely known. Yeah, they said this
Yeah.
guy is a remote viewer priest and
Hmm.
viewing uh and the afterlife. So, and that's something where I'm like, okay, if somebody does get a glimpse of going into the next life, is it really the next life? How do we know it's not a glimpse into something from the past, the present, the future? That's the thing. It's like Western science or modern science works in a way that's really backwards, that has have people literally believe something is true. When you
Hmm.
look at it, you start to say, this is just insane. The person, they'll find something in 3 feet of dirt. And then next thing you know, they'll make a whole story about it. Like, oh, it's millions of years old and it came from over here. And it's like, wait a second. The science is you found it in 3 feet of dirt.
Right.
That's it. Dating, now we have to get into the methods. Could it be off? Could it be accurate? Like the priest, if he's seeing something, they're saying, okay, the priest who saw dead people, if somebody's passed and they're seeing something from that person, okay, so now you know that the person isn't here. So that's a pretty online assessment to say, all right,
Hmm.
we're seeing something from a person that's not here.
Hmm.
They're saying he's an Anglican priest, Friar. So another one, Friar James, and they said this guy possessed extraordinary spiritual gifts, including the ability to see deceased people and
I
read
think
souls.
that's the one. I think that's the guy.
So it might be Friar James.
Yeah, I think that's the guy. That name sounds more fitting to what I was remember. I
Okay,
think that's the one.
so it's not the other guy, Dwight Longnecker.
No, I don't think Dwight Longnecker. I think
Okay,
it's that guy. Yeah, and the
so
story is it's great, bro. Like even if you just watch the videos just to like for entertainment purposes, it's like it makes sense. It adds up. You know what I mean? and I'm always like, I'm always um not to go off, but like I'm always questioning everything. So I always ask like what's the why? Why doesn't gold grow on trees? Why is it inside the earth where since we live on the crust, right? We live on the surface, right? And everything that we consume or we use, it's on the surface with us. So why would an element like gold exist inside the earth where we have to dig it up where we can't see it? It's like if we want an apple, you don't dig into the ground to get an apple, right? You just pick it off the tree because the tree is visible. You can touch it right there and you can pick the apple, right? Gold and steel and these valuable resources are inside the earth. So then I'm starting to think like I go down the rabbit hole of like, so who was like the first person to say let's dig inside the ground and assess what's down there? You know what I mean? And why is there a whole ecosystem down there? And then I started to like go into other space. I started questioning animals to like the point where I learned about the I don't know if you know about the volcanic snail.
The volcanic what?
A volcanic snail. It's a snail that's at the I think the bottom of the ocean, and it lives on at the beginning of volcanoes. If that makes
So
sense.
underwater.
Yeah, and where there's like the steam that comes off of like off these volcanoes is like it's crazy, and the snail is able to survive, and it has a shell that's made out of metal. They tested the shells. The shells are made of. So I'm like, why would that creature exist in the first place? Like, what's the purpose for a volcanic snail that could withstand all these degrees of heat and has a shell that's made out of metal? You know what I mean? It has no predators. I mean, it's like, what's the purpose of these things existing? If you know what I'm trying to say, like.
Yeah, yeah.
They
It
have to
really.
exist because we're not eating them. The only way we know about them is because we sent like submarines down there to go see what's going on. But what's the purpose of that? Like,
Yeah.
like, y- um, I was thinking the other day, like, why do we have uh, I'm sorry.
I'm looking up the shell, and they have one Chrysomalin squamiferum, and they're saying that this one incorporates iron sulfide into its
Yeah,
skeleton.
yeah. You see it, right? It's metal.
Yeah, they have, and then they have other ones too, gastropods. Those deep sea vents, so those are underwater volcanic vents that
Yeah,
heat the
they're really.
water up like extremely hot, and they have like, they found them many, many years ago,
Yeah,
decades actually.
yeah.
And again, they find things like this from usually by accident. And this
Hmm.
is why when we look at discoveries that are made by accident, they're more genuine. So if someone goes to make a discovery, usually it's not going to be a genuine discovery because they're saying, hey, I'm going out here to find the missing link in Africa. And then when they find it in 2 weeks, any thinking person would say that's kind of suspicious,
Hmm.
right? So when they found a lot of underwater life, they were
Hold on.
repairing cables.
Right.
So they were repairing cables and they needed cameras and lights. And when they hooked that up, they saw a whole ecosystem that they never knew existed. And that's what sparked the field of deep underwater biology stuff. And so when you look at the fact that, wow, this was found without looking for it, because somebody could go in a cave and look for life, and it's just an empty cave and they don't really find anything. And usually, if they're not looking for a cave and they stumble upon it, it usually has some very important clue to the past or humanity or something from ancient civilizations.
Hmm.
So when we look at the way they find these things, like these deep sea underwater vents, it really, you have a very good question, because you start to think, you say, what the heck is the purpose of this thing
Right.
sitting there on the bottom of the ocean, pulling
Right.
in heat? So it's basically, it's like, you can't tell me it's like, I'm trying to understand, how is that the purpose of life? But
Right.
like, so what is the purpose of life? So you're telling me, as if, somebody would say, all right, so if I'm a clam on a deep sea vent, like, what if that clam, the only thing I can think of is if that clam has a consciousness that
Mm.
goes beyond, because modern and Western science has it's very arrogant, it's very childlike. When you just look at the politics of any countries, all leaders in countries basically, but more so in the ones that consider themselves modern, because
Yeah.
the modern countries, when you look at some of the stuff they do, it's very barbaric. It's saying, okay, you're technologically more advanced than these other countries, and that's how you subjugate them. But you don't act like a mature entity, because not you or I, but the countries, they basically exploit the people that are not as powerful as they are for minerals and for
Mm-hmm.
resources. So we
Mm-hmm.
start to say, okay, does it seem like they're just the people that are invading? Are they the ones that are just exploiting, or is there something behind the scene? So now we start to look at it with a smarter mind, to say, like, somebody comes and, maybe, just to put it in a simple way, they rob a store, but the regular detectives will say, okay, this could be a clear cut case of people just walking into a store and committing the crime. Or
Right.
it could be that somebody sent them. So somebody might have sent them to get something that was in that store, saying, look, this item that's in the box under the desk is the item we need. Everything else you can keep. You'll find thousands of dollars, whatever, so you can keep that. But we need this item.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see these countries invade other countries, it could be possibly to recover certain items that have to do with advance in technology that has nothing to do with making our lives better, really, but they're using us to acquire this. But going back to what you're saying about the clam on the shell, on the
Mm-hmm.
vent, we start to say, well, what is our purpose? Because it seems like we're being used. It seems like something is using us. um when I look at the clam on the vent just living, and then I compare that with somebody having, say, you store up enough food to where you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to really get any more food. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
place, you have fuel, whatever you need to keep warm or comfortable. And now you have enough stuff. Usually you're still going to have to deal with you're still going to have to deal with growing something or getting some type of fresh food or something.
Mm-hmm.
But you can minimize it with canned food and jars food and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how long they can last, maybe 10 years, maybe 20, maybe even longer. But the thing is to say that if everything is taken care of in that way, or you have it to where it's in a cycle, you say, okay, every year I pick these foods, I can them, I put them in the jars, and then I eat some. And then the next year I'll do the same thing and I'll eat some of the preservative ones from the year prior. Like a lot of farms would store food in a root cellar. So they always have a year to 2 years worth of food. And if stuff got hard, they could stretch it a few years. So now you start to say, what is life about? So I have my food, I have my shelter, I have my clothing. What is life about now? What am I um what am I what is the purpose of existence? And that's the thing. It's not, needing purpose is one thing, but it's totally different from trying to find out what is the purpose of being. And that is, it takes us back to that really deep question of when you look at the clam on that jet, on that deep sea vent, you start to wonder. You say, what it really does. And it's great that you brought that up. It makes you question existence.
Right. And can I wait, MD, can I say this? Because I see where you're going. And that's how I started. So when I was saying like my process, like the flow state I was in when I was questioning everything, and it started with the animals and the why are materials inside the ground, and then I started to question, like you touched on earlier, the systems that we live in, right? And I call it the queen system. But I'm trying to there's still more I'm thinking about that I'm trying to like piece together. But from what I've observed so far, with me constantly asking why, I've reached a point where, so I started with like events and questioning compliance. So I started questioning. I started, like, for example, like Hitler. I started with Hitler, and I said, we're men with common sense, right? You see a bad person, you want to put that bad person away or take them out, right? And I'm trying to figure out. I'm saying to myself, well, why? Why were all these grown men? At least some of them had a conscience. I'm sure he's not Professor X, where he has like mind control power. Everyone has free will. Everyone has their own God-given brain. Somebody at some point had to listen to this guy giving a speech and was like, you know what? First of all, he wasn't strapped. He didn't have any guns. All you grown men are surrounding this guy. Somebody at some point should have a breaking point. It's like, you know what? Let me just knock him off and take him out of this misery. You know what I mean? Like, this dude is bugging out. And yet, none of these grown men decided to, you know what I mean? And it made me question why. Then I started to look at like the royals, right? Elizabeth and all these people. And I'm like, why would someone want to be subservient to a group of people? You know what I mean? You guys have the guys protecting them have the weapons. You guys could just wipe out the whole family and just, like, you know what I mean? Like, what's it called? The Robin Hood thing. You could just wipe out the whole family and restore power. You know? So I'm watching the pattern. You didn't do it with Hitler, Joseph Stalin. You know what I mean? This guy starved out a whole nation. Still, soldiers protecting them. I'm like, why? What is with this? It's like these people around them. These, whether it's security, CIA, whatever. You It's like, I don't know. I'm like, is there some type of mind control, Professor X, Jean Grey thing going on where it's like all of you grown men with arms on you, you don't have discernment at like, there's nobody that snaps and says, you know what, all right, enough is enough now. Let's just take them out. It's like the same pattern throughout history. You know what I mean? You have 20 people guarding one person who's nuts. Hitler, nuts. People serving the royals. And you got to know these people are into like sacrificing, and none of you have like the balls to say, you know what? I know these people do some sick stuff. Let's wipe them out while they go to sleep. You know what I mean? I'm noticing the pattern. I'm like, why? Why? Like, there's so many things in history that could have been fixed by one brave person just saying, all right, let's cut it out. And yet it never happened. You know? Uh Saddam Hussein. Well, I think his fate was, the people took him out. But it's like, all these guys, man. Aleister Crowley, like, it's always like one person who's just walking around free in the world. They don't have a gun, a knife, or nothing, but they have all these people who have guns and knives on them, protecting them. And none of these people, like, they'll stick by their side for years, but none of these people at some point say, you know what, this MFer is sick. Let me wipe him out. And so when you keep noticing the pattern of, brainwashed individuals playing security to some off characters, you start to wonder, is there some type of like mind control spell that some of these people know, or like, you know what I mean? It's like it's like it's like even the what's that, the Heaven's Gate thing? Like even these cult leaders, you know what I mean? Like how you could gather, they could gather people to drink, you know, and go into the woods and drink some poisonous Kool-Aid or whatever. It's like, that, does no one have the, you know what I mean? There has to be something else in the background. There has to be something else in the works to make people so compliant. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, what you're seeing is you're starting to notice how power is a totally psychological operation because you're saying to yourself, this guy isn't carrying a weapon, but he has other people ready to die at his command. He doesn't even have
Exactly.
to ask. And
Exactly.
that is what Robert Greene was saying about power being fully, it's a total psychological mind trap. And if we don't think for ourselves and have the courage, more than just thinking for ourselves, but to think of plans and how our plans can be wrong, and then how do we improve them? How do we accept being wrong, move forward, build something better, realize where we were wrong so we're not wrong in that spot again? And controlling the ego in that way is like what scientists do. They'll say, "Oh, okay, we tried to build this rocket in this way and it didn't work. So let's find out what went wrong and correct that and do it again." And they do that with firearms. They do that with types of ammunition. They'll say,
Right.
okay, maybe if we use this type of metal, what would be the difference that do we know about the properties of this metal? Could we combine those properties with something else? Could we alter the gunpowder to do something different? The shape of the shell, the round itself, to fly better in the air, to be more quiet. This is part of us that allows the forward movement of progress. There seems to be more than just human that is with us. Now, I'm not saying it's anything religious or anything like that. I'm saying that when we look at life in general, the stuff we can't see is what controls everything we can see. So air,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So we start to see, okay, we have this relationship with the invisible. So the invisible has a relationship with the visible, and these are invisible things that are physical. So we can weigh these things. We can trap the air, like the experiment to prove that air is a thing by doing underwater experiments. You can, take a bubble of air and say, okay, see this bubble, when it comes up above the water and joins with the rest of the air, it's invisible. You can't see it. You can only see it in the form of a bubble because it's underwater, and it's contained because that's the amount of whatever gases it fills that area of a bubble the size of, say, a fist or something coming up from under the water. So understanding the natural world, very like understanding it on a high level, to where we go way beyond saying, like, some people who don't know would just immediately say, oh, it's ghost or it's this, and it's like, no, no, no. We're not discounting the fact that ghosts or spirits or something like that could exist. We're saying that we can't jump to that conclusion, because then it throws away all the scientific work we've done
Hmm.
to try to find out how this thing really exists. Like just the question of the clam or the snail at the sea vent, and
Hmm.
thinking, saying, what the heck is this snail thinking about?
Right.
It's like, what is the purpose of whoever or whatever group created everything that we see? What is the
Right.
purpose of this? I
Right.
just don't get it. Is it really like a video game where you, like, say, I've made video games with people before. They do the coding, I do the artwork and the direction. And
Mhm.
I would say, okay, we can, in the background, we could have this little snail crawling over this rock and
Mhm.
make these little things come out of the vents, and it feeds on that. And that's the life cycle of that snail in the video game.
Mhm.
So all that snail does is eat that. And matter of fact, it doesn't even get older. It just stays
Mhm.
that way forever, for as long as you play the game.
Mhm.
Now we have a scenario to say, oh, okay, I see something similar like to that snail that we're
Mhm.
filming on the bottom of the ocean.
Mhm.
But it makes me wonder again, why is this so again, we pose the question of, I don't get it. So I made a snail to
Mhm.
sit on a rock and eat some stuff that comes off the vent.
Right.
It has to be something deeper than that. It
Yeah.
can't be that, and I hear where you're at. I feel it exactly. Like, you
Yeah.
look at some things and you say, especially the mindless stuff that we see, when we say, what the hell is the purpose of, why is somebody trying to distract me from something?
Right.
Always with, oh, these two guys are going to fight and it's the most important thing in the universe. I mean, just thinking the way that they promote certain sports events and fighting and all of this stuff, even though I used to watch that stuff, it makes me wonder, like, wait a second, they're promoting this stuff like it's more important than food.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people are rushing to it. They're like, yeah, man, so and so is going to fight. So, and I'm like, who cares?
Mhm.
Who cares? It's like there's something that's keeping us in a state of such a, I don't want to say lower vibration, but more of an
No, you're
immature,
right. You're
right?
right, and I'm sorry if I I'm just getting excited because you're as you're going, it's kind of like what I was saying. Like I kept asking why until I reached a certain point, and now you're touching on that point because not to cut you off, but the point that you're leading up to is kind of where I was getting, where it's like there is a entity, right? That is when I kept asking why, when I started studying, the world's most evilest people, royals, why do people comply? And there must be some type of mind control thing going on. It led me to a point where I said, there's like you said, there's something on the other side, in another realm, that's controlling all of this. And when I started to question that thing, whatever it is, I started to connect the dots to every war because I started learning about like voodoo and these type of things or whatever you want to call it. But the main reason I wanted to learn because I learned about the sacrifices, right? So and it's not all this like boogeyman crap that you hear you know uh somebody gets a movie deal or a record deal and they have to, no, it's way deeper than this. I'm talking about every day, like when you watch the news and you hear, oh, a school bus crashes and 16 kids were unalive. That, like, there's regular things that are happening. It's not always somebody eating somebody or do. There's forces that orchestrate things to happen in order to make the sacrifice happen because the sacrifice feeds whatever's on the other side. So when you hear about these planes going missing, people always think of the extremes, the kids, the this. No, no, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about you know, um, you know, you walking somewhere, you go into the supermarket, and a bus crashes into the supermarket and takes out 20 people. There's people who know how to work this like spiritual, whatever you want to call it, in order to make sacrifices happen to feed the monster. That makes sense. Because the monster is what's controlling the whole thing, but the monster needs the energy. Because remember, we're all energy. Energy, it can't be destroyed. It can only be transferred. So that's kind of where I've reached. I'm like, oh snap! There's something on the other side that it needs us to go to war. It needs people to have outbursts and kids to go to school and do crazy things and take out their classmates. It needs a pilot to go, you know, uh, fly the plane drunk and crash. It needs planes to disappear. It needs accidents on the highway. It needs people to overdose. It needs you know what I mean? It needs people to get cancer. It needs there's something that feeds off you know the life force, you know,
Yeah.
and they're
If you,
feeding it to it. They're
yeah,
feeding it because even in Antarctica, like the restricted areas that we can't go, that there's pyramids. I even believe that that entity is somewhere. What Agartha? I know about Agartha, but there's something else in there that they're sacrificing. You know, you know what I mean? Like everyday lives that are lost somehow feed this thing. Whatever this monster is, it's getting fed. You know?
yeah. No, that's a deep way of looking at it because it does seem like maybe it's a monster, or maybe it's several monsters, but you're right. It's like it feeds off of anguish and like
Uh-huh.
a spiritual despair. And that's
Uh-huh.
what feeds it, like fear. Like I've
Uh-huh.
heard a few researchers touch on it. I think Ike had talked about maybe possible a type of spiritual being that needs conflict, needs fear, needs that feeling that a person gets when they're about to be ended. And it feeds off of that and it keeps us in this constant thing. Alexis, brother, thank you for the support, bro. Alexis says another ICE killing people are angry. Civil war. And
Yep. Yep.
you know,
I'm sorry.
yeah, and this is part of the, in our
It's a part of the
opinion,
sacrifice. It's a
yeah,
part of the. You know what I mean? When
in
you
our
see these.
opinion, yeah, it's
Yeah.
something that is, and I'm looking at it also as part experiment that the government is saying, look, we're going to make sure just how far we can push them. And so, in other words, they might have given the order to end another civilian, and they know that nobody's going to do anything. They
Mhm.
know it's like if these things are so planned out. It's like with the 9/11, with the towers. When I look at the fact that people don't even remember that basically and don't
Mhm.
care even
Mhm.
more, they don't care. It's
Mhm.
to say, um, the science, like when I look
Mhm.
at the science of a lot of technological advancements, and I'm saying, wow, nobody cares. Nobody cares that they're taking LED lights openly. Anybody can look this stuff up and, say, oh, okay, so they're doing experiments with mice on short-term memory with LED blue lights. And now, if you were to apply that to humans, we're seeing the implications, like the movie Men in Black with the neuralizer that erased a certain part of your short-term memory. So it
Mhm.
was like the people still remembered their long term, but when they saw something crazy happen in society, okay, can everybody please look at this light? Boom. Now, in the movie, it wouldn't even be everybody look at this light. It would just be a flash from a street lamp or
Right.
something. And in one of the movies, they had it where they used the Statue of Liberty's torch to
Mhm.
flash and make everybody, go back into that. So when it's like what you're saying really makes sense because it's showing that maybe and that's a brutal reality that people don't want to accept when we look at that and say, well, man, maybe part of our, I don't know if it's our direct purposes, but we know that this monster, like you said, feeds off of
Mhm.
the fact whenever we start to hate or we do something hurtful to
Mhm.
something or someone, because I think
Mhm.
it can even work on doing it with animals. And this is
Yeah.
where I understand where the vegans, like Vegan Skeptic, he's a really cool guy. He comes on sometimes. And I think Drew is still a vegan. I look at it as, wow, if I had to kill the animals, I probably would be a vegetarian. Because to butcher it and kill it and all of that is just like, yeah, that's kind of brutal. But I do want to eat it. And I
Mhm.
remember a guy saying that like years ago. He goes, yeah, he goes, you want the steak on your plate, but you don't want to see the cow, you don't want to see the butchering, you don't want to see this, you just want it on the plate. And when we don't know where things come from, we kind of get lost in the relation to it to say, um, to see how important it is to know that
Mhm.
relation. Because if we don't know where our food comes from, you already know we're eating processed whatever. And what you're saying about this, the spiritual realm of saying, okay, there is something, even if it's not spiritual and it's actually a physical thing that can be measured, like the way gas and invisible radio waves and stuff can be detected. It
Mhm.
shows us that it's real, that there's
Mhm.
something, and you wonder just on psychological um understanding to say, yeah, what the heck is going on with all of this freaking problems? It's always
Mhm.
some type of problem. It's never, I said it like a couple of shows ago. I go, it would be so nice to see the president sit down and say, I'd like to address the American people. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. And um and I think that people should love each other more. So when you
Mhm.
talk to your neighbor, when you see somebody in society, be nice to them, be kind to them. I've never heard a president say that. And that the absence of saying something tells us a lot about what their agenda is to
Mhm.
say, oh, so you're not saying that. So
Mhm.
I could assume, which it's not always good to assume, but I
Yeah.
could extrapolate and say, you're never saying that. So it's as if you want people to not get along, to
It's like
not
you said.
yeah.
I'm saying. I was gonna say. Silence is a form of compliance. So it's like when you don't.
Yeah, silence is a total
Yeah.
compliance. And Brian, I understand you're still on the evolution part of it. Yes, we can eat animals. You
Uh-huh.
can take alcohol, right? And you can pour it into the gasoline tank of a car. They would do this to race cars. It would pep the car up, but it would also strip the engine. It would strip internal parts because of the alcohol's proof. Now,
Uh-huh.
the car, it would act kind of like a mild type of nitrous oxide or boost when people would race their cars, but the car can run on that, but we see the wear and tear it has to it. The same way the body can eat processed foods, and we see
Uh-huh.
the problem with it. What we're trying to do is go a little further, Brian. We're trying to say, what if the story that was told to us is wrong? When we
Uh-huh.
look at life itself, when we look at existence itself, we you want to question stuff. You want to say, wait a second, man. What the heck am I doing here?
Uh-huh.
What is life about, and where am I
Uh-huh.
going? That's the
Uh-huh.
craziest thing, that we're moving forward and we're seeing people exit the train and nobody knows where those people went. They'll make stories up. Oh, they went to some place with clouds in the sky,
Uh-huh.
or they just are fertilizer now, according to the evolutionists, which we don't know. We know that part of them is can be fertilizer, but there's another part. Alexa says only thing presides say are everything that's going wrong right now is because of the opposite political party. Keep voting me into fix it. Yeah, the zombies that think that they can vote, and also that have voted and even support the stuff that's going on right now,
Uh-huh.
are so distracted. Like
Uh-huh.
again, when you look at what's going on right now and you see like, wow, it's like a control panel with little dials. And when you turn the dial, one of the dial is turn up the heat in Minnesota. Have, you have your choices. Do they want somebody to be off? Do they want to just beat a citizen and arrest them? Do they want to end them in an open fashion that causes a type of fear? Because remember, if they don't want something to be aired, it will not be aired. And we saw that happen during the pandemic. We saw
Uh-huh.
people just their whole accounts get just disappear. And
Uh-huh.
now, last year or even in 24, they were trying to say how they were wrong. Now, when you delete medical people's profile and people who are sharing truthful scientific studies, and you delete that during the time of the emergency, and then years later, not even months, years later, come out and say, well, yeah, the fact checkers were employees. They weren't professional researchers. They were employees. And that some of those accounts maybe shouldn't have been deleted. And I think it was over 200,000, almost a quarter of a million people, because people were like, look, I'm not doing that. And when I look at the amount of people that did it, that's the one scary thing. But what's even scarier than that are the people that think the other people should be forced to do it too. So it's one thing to get the magic potion during this thing. Then the other thing is to say, well, everybody else should be forced to do it too. That's some scary. See that right there? That's like, as much as people might try to put a good light on any of these monsters in history, that's the Hitler method. That's the Hitler method of saying, look, what we tell you to do, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, see, and I understand what people are saying with Hitler. They say, oh, well, you know, there was other people that were messed up. Yeah, there were. There definitely were. But he was messed up too.
I mean, and Joseph Stalin, Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the list goes on, yeah. And that's not to discredit, you know, to take away from, well, you know, bad people are bad people, but, you know.
Well, look at this too. Why is it always, and this is another type of brainwashing that they do to us, that it's very easy to slip by us. Why are all of the main criminals white? Like you have one guy who, he was a brutal dictator from Africa, Idi Amin. There's pictures people can find of white men in suits carrying him on a podium like he's a king. I mean, people don't like to show those pictures. But see, I wondered, I said, why don't they talk about, they mention Pol Pot and Mao Zedong killing 30, 40, 50 million people, you know, and stuff. But it's mentioned in a way that is secondary. It just gives me that feeling. I'm not saying it is secondary. I'm just saying they always make it seem like Hitler and Stalin.
Those are the names that pop up first.
Yeah, like those are the better bad guys, or those are the tougher. You know what I mean? It's like these bad guys.
I mean, Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan tops Hitler by 1,000.
Oh yeah, you know but still,
dude was, you know, smashing dudes' wives over their, you know, their unalive bodies. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, it totally overshadows, dominates. But, and I wondered about that. And I said, why do they do that? And it made me think that it's like a control mechanism to say, okay, we're going to show you that, because there's something behind the scenes pitting humans against humans. So they're going to say, okay, with evolution, we're going to say that, of course, Hitler and these other guys, the bad part of it, they're fighting with the open ideology of what they would consider to be a master race, which the saddest, I mean, it was kind of like a karmic thing when they had the Ubermen, the so-called Hitler's Aryan supermen, lose to Jesse Owens, who won all the gold medals. And then when you look at further on how they humiliated him and had him racing dogs and stuff, I mean, just horrible stuff. When you look at the aftermath of World War II, there was a sergeant, a black man from World War II, who got off the bus in South Carolina. Anybody can look up the story. He wanted to go to the bathroom, and the bus driver got into an argument with him, called the police sheriff, and they beat the guy up and gouged out his eyes. I mean, this dude was blinded. Now, this is a veteran, a United States Army war veteran that just got off the bus, just got back for fighting, and that was the treatment. And the saddest, another sad part is, the police chief faced no charges. The president. So something that was so important that we don't see anybody doing anything about. And it's like what you were saying about the monster. It makes me wonder, does this monster, or do these parts of the big monster, or maybe just different parts of a whole bunch of different monsters that feed off of this type of hatred and hurt, and I guess I don't want to call it just a spiritual energy because it's not as definitive enough, but something like that, that I guess it's an energy that, or some type of feeling that is produced when somebody is going through some horrible stuff. So when you look at like the Vietnam veterans, I had did a thing. I'm going to do a new one because I don't think it's public, but it was about the night visions that some of the soldiers were saying they were seeing other beings through the night vision accompany them when they were going on the helicopter raids to attack the enemy. And could it be that they were harvesting something from the people that were ended? Now, this is people talking about this in a time of war when people are getting ended. So it's not just like they're saying, hey, I was looking through a telescope at night and I saw this. It's like, no, we're in a combat zone and people are getting ended. And when they're ended, what is there something else that leaves the body? Is there something else that these beings or the monster can feed upon? And this monster, like I've noticed, that if we treat each other good and we're calm and we don't let anger in, anger is like a switch or like an open. Yeah, it lets them. Yeah, it's to say you got to close that door. If you don't close the door of anger, if they can get you angry, bang, they're in control.
Mm-hmm.
They're in control.
Can I say this, MD?
Mm-hmm.
Also, adding on to that, because now you got me thinking even deeper about it. We have common, you could say, like, they put it in our face in some of the, I know everybody says things are in movies and stuff. Yeah, you could take a little, it's not always like everything is in a movie, but just little concepts like how we're touching on the monster and what it feeds off of, and the anger and the energies. You know, I'm thinking about horror films, right? And the reoccurring theme in a lot of horror films is that the villain or whoever is setting up this film, whether it's Pennywise, whether it's Jigsaw, whether it's Freddy, whether it's Jason, is some type of monster, or Chucky. They have some type of gripe, right? They have some type of chip on their shoulder, right? That's the villain. They have some type of anger, whether it's Joker and Batman, whether it's you know, Galactus, whatever. There's some type of chip, whatever this character is. You can change the name, but it's the same theme. There's some type of chip on their shoulder, which gives them the energy to carry out these, you know what I mean, these evil acts, right? And this is in, fiction, right? These movies, TVs, that's the reoccurring theme, right? They have a chip on their shoulder and they're gonna impose their will to harm others, regardless of what type of franchise it is. It's always the same thing, right? It's never like a friendly, it's never a friendly ghost or a friendly, Silence of the Lamb. There's always something, right, that's negative that motivates whatever character to carry out evil. So, like we were saying about if we treat each other good, and you know, eh, the Jason story, right? Drowned it as a kid at the camp or whatever. The Freddy story, dude got burnt up. Chucky. It's the reoccurring theme. There's some type of chip on people's shoulder, and then we go to these prominent figures, Hitler and Stallion and Khan. Some people are just off, you know. Some people are just off, but it's always this. There is something. There's something. There's some type of negative energy that lingers throughout these vessels that carries out this evil, you know, this kind of punishment that they impose, whether it's in movies, whether it's in real life. And another thing that you touched on when you're talking about something about the spirituality, I've realized that the only thing, how people say the only thing that separates humans from a pig is, what is it, two legs or whatever.
Or the
No,
liver or the heart. Yeah, like Earl Nightingale, I think,
yeah,
was
it,
saying something. But MAGA Mike, brother, thank you for the support, bro. Mike says, you're either with us or against us in this war, Max. I don't know what war, if you can let me know which war. But I appreciate the support, brother Mike. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, Reed.
No, so I was saying the second point when you're touching on the spirituality thing, like you said, Earl Nightingale said that, but it's deeper than that, and it's really
Yeah,
simple. What I realized is it's a spirit, right?
yeah,
What the Creator, what God gave us, right, is yeah, we look physically different. We height, I always say life is 50% whatever random selection we come out as, and then 50% what we choose to do within that random selection. But really, it's the spirit, right? I have a shellfish allergy. I can't eat shellfish. I can't eat dairy, right? But everybody else in my family has, right? These are my blood, relatives, right? Everybody else can eat the stuff, but I'm the only one in the whole family who can't. So my spirit, right? I was designed like, you know what I mean? For some reason, me out of my lineage, I can't consume these things. It has to be a reason, right? So, you know, it's like when you see people get into an accident, right, or athletes who go through CTE, and you see their behavior change, right? It's what makes them is the spirit. What makes Mayweather different from I don't know, Deontay Wilder. It's not the height. It's the spirit. The spirit is the character that creates the individual. You know what I mean? Your likes, your dislikes. How you dress, the music you listen to. You know what I mean? Because like you said, we're all one human race. But the thing that separates us is the unique spirit, right? Because once you're on that, you're in that coffin. You're just flesh, right? But the character is the personality, that animates that. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. It's like the mask. The mask movie.
hmm hmm
Regardless, whoever puts on that mask, the same personality pops up. You know what I mean?
or it
Whether
amplifies them, right? Like when the bad
right,
guy put it on, it amplified his badness.
right,
And then if Jim puts it on, it kind of amplifies what you already have, like in a
right.
way. And that's something that I wonder: can the spirit change? Can the because they'll call it spirit, soul, consciousness, or can
Mm-hmm.
those be different things?
Has
Are they
even
all? Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I
No,
was
no,
gonna
yeah.
say even I don't know if you heard about the Aleister Crowley's daughter. I was watching a video of uh they were talking about the Aleister Crowley and his daughter before he died, and he had powers or whatever where he could, I guess transfer like the Harry Potter thing, where he could transfer his consciousness or his spirit into, other people, and he was trying to do it. There's a guy who speaks on it, and he did it to his daughter. I can't remember the whole thing exactly, but I remember that part. He was Crowley was gonna get taken out, and somehow his daughter was in the house or whatever, and the guy said that Crowley, like, he transferred his thing to his daughter, but he tried to but he didn't do it in a quick amount of time or something like that. You got to search. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, you can search it up. There's a video on YouTube where the guy talks about it. That this dude could really, like, he could like the mask. You know what I mean? Like he could go into other vessels. You know what I mean? I'm not explaining it, but like kind of like how the horror crooks and Harry Potter with what I'm talking about. Are there you could split the soul into different things?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I think I know what you're talking about with the Voldemort thing or something.
Yeah, yeah. They say Crowley had that power where he could transfer himself into other people. So if like say you knew he knew there was a hit on him, and
Mhm.
he kept someone around to where he could, like, you know he could put his spirit in somebody else's. I swear, there's a whole video of this guy doing an interview talking about it, and he said he's seen the thing with his own eye. You know
Kind of
how
deep.
yeah, yeah. And he basically raised his daughter as a vessel. It was crazy, man. It's crazy.
I mean, when
But
we
yeah,
look through it too, we got to remember everything that's written. You know, somebody's trying to tell us this. They're trying and that's where life gets to where we start to see it's just us, that almost we become snail on the deep sea vent at that point, just straight clam, because we're sitting here like what if, I mean, what if,
I can tell you like the snail thing.
yeah, I like that, man. When you brought that up, man, that's a really, I mean, I don't know if you know how deep you got with that, man. That's a deep freaking saying. Like when
Bro,
you brought that up, man.
bro, and it's, you know what, it's a crazy thing. I always like, I remember being from the city, and me, like, you know how people always talk about racism, but I'm way beyond that, right? Because I'm always asking why. So I'm always trying to find the logic and common sense and things. And I remember telling one of my bros, I'm like, yo, shut up. He's like, yo, racist this. I said, no, it's not racism, it's tribalism, right? And he's stunned. And I broke it down to him. I said, listen, you have polar bears, you got grizzly bears, brown bears, right? What is it? The sun bear? All these type of bears. They're all bears. But you'll never catch a polar bear hanging out with a grizzly bear, right? You'll never catch a grizzly bear hanging out with a black bear, right? But they're all bears. So, like, I was trying to explain, like, shut up with all this. It's not racism, it's tribalism, right? People who are things that are like other things like to be around other things. We have a beautiful ocean, right? Full of all these aquatic creatures. You'll never catch a shark hanging out with a great white hanging out with a hammerhead, or hanging out with an angel shark or a lion shark. You know, you'll never catch a grouper hanging out with a snapper. You know, you never
Well,
catch the snapper hanging out with the crab. Even in nature, and these are just animals. Even in nature, everyone has their own clique. You know what I mean? You'll never catch a cobra hanging out with
well, now we have that, right? So we see that clearly in nature, but we
Mhm,
also see the opposite. So that's the beautiful thing. Nature shows us that, okay, we have places here that
mhm,
naturally things are going to find their own order and their
mhm.
place. And then we have other parts in nature where things are going to mix together. Things are going to work together in such a beautiful way
Oh yeah.
where it'll almost be unbelievable. And we see it like with just simple examples, the cleaning fish. So the fish that clean the other fish, that's amazing. The birds
Yeah.
that eat the ticks off of rhinos and stuff,
Mhm,
and giraffes. And
mhm.
these things are well needed. So
Yeah.
when you look at that, you start to say, okay, we have stuff like the bears, and the bears, when they overlap, they'll kill. Grizzlies will kill black
Yeah,
bears. And
yeah, that's what I was getting to. That's what I was explaining to my boy. I was like, if they do cross paths, it's over.
yeah,
Especially
sometimes,
the polar
sometimes.
bear wipes out all of them anyway, because he's the most biggest bear, the most powerful.
Yeah, but there
Mm.
are instances, and this is the weird thing, and this is in the captivity setting where a wolverine escaped its area and got into where the polar bear was and ended the polar bear. Yeah, this was
Well,
like the first documented account. Now, of course, in nature, maybe the polar bear would have been able to evade the wolverine, but the fact that you have a predator that's the apex predator, polar bear, it when you see the power of like the wolverine, the badger, even the
yeah,
badger.
that's what I was about to say. Because it's the badger family too. So
Yeah, and the badger is actually smaller than the wolverine, but they have on video two wolverines were trying to tear apart a badger and couldn't succeed, and they actually
Mhm.
had to leave. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was like shocked because I thought the
Bro,
wolverine, being a bigger part of the badger family, with
family,
a
yeah.
stronger, yeah, bite, they could the regular American badger, the toughness of it
Oh
is,
man,
yeah, it's just so
I'm
when I
sorry to
look.
interrupt, MD, because I'm getting hype about it. Do you even know that when they say if they get bit by something venomous, they just go to sleep and wake back up like nothing happened?
Certain badgers, yeah, they
Yeah.
definitely, they when just looking at something like that, and then looking at the felines. So we have the mountain lions, we have the cheetahs, the leopards and lions, and then we have the canines, which fall into the wolves and the coyotes and the bears and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So we just look at those predators in that area, and then also you have the prey, the rabbits and the deer and the
Mhm,
elk, which some of them are very big and sometimes they can't be preyed upon, so
mhm,
um just that as far as the macro life system. And then we know it goes down into the insects, into the microbial, also into the air with the birds, the different types of insects that fly, the different
mhm.
types of birds. It just really, when you look at it, that is just the animated life. Then you have the trees, the fauna, the funguses. So you have the fungus that lives in,
Mycelium that
yeah, mycelium.
they
So,
all
so
talk to each other.
yeah, and the more we
Yeah.
look, the more we start to see how fascinating it is. We start to get more questions. That's how we know we're on the right path. Because if we're getting more questions and we're saying, wait a minute, man, I'm getting overloaded with all these questions. No, that's a good thing. It's kind of like, I guess, like a dealer, Scarface, something like that, getting overloaded with stuff, even though he's
Mhm,
paying it off.
mhm.
He's just got so much product at this point that he
Yeah.
can't lose. It's just because and this is where businesses, they'll get products and they'll liquidate it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like kind of like Walmart and stuff. Uh, if you're getting 100 coconuts for a penny, you can't lose.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're selling one for a penny, you just made 100 times a profit, and you're selling it
Mhm,
at such a low price. It's
mhm,
ridiculous. Um,
mhm.
yeah, just looking, when I look at the business model on the technological part of the world, it reminds me of how important growing food and having a piece of land, which is almost impossible for a lot of people to have that. But to say, I tried it a few years, like, like a decade ago. I was working on farms and, helping people out and visiting places. And it's a serious thing. It's a serious thing to have to be able to say, okay, uh we got chickens, and these chickens produce eggs at this rate, and this is the rate that we eat eggs at. And if we get more, we can either sell them or trade with another farm, or we can turn them into something that can last longer, like when they can fruits and stuff like that, or put them
Cost
in jars.
effectiveness.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's very important, because if we don't do that, now we're subjected to the processed foods. We're subjected to something with ingredients that are straight out of a laboratory.
Oh
And
man.
we know this. Yeah, we see this
Oh
in
man.
any store. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say. I was watching this thing. I learned about. Do you know that like half each of like a honey bun or a Snickers bar has like 30 ingredients? You know, like 18 out of those 30 ingredients, you have to own like a laboratory and you have to have government clearance. You can only like you have to order those chemicals from the government. Did you know that?
Wow, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, like riboflavin and all that other crap, you have to order it from the government. There's a certain
Holy,
like level of clearance that you need, and you have to have a like a established like lab or whatever. You have to have proof that you have this facility, and you can only those chemicals come directly from the government. So regardless of what brand, Campbell's, Kraft, they're all ordering. Government makes these stuff. It makes these chemicals.
yeah, yeah. They have
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, it just, the stuff that they put in certain foods. Um, Alexis, brother, thank you. He says, watch this from Myron Gaines. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check it. And he said, make sure the volume is off. So, okay, yeah, yeah, I'll definitely. Uh,
That's right.
yeah, what were you
I
saying?
was, no, I was gonna say even like you. It's not even once I learned that, which I kind of already knew. It's basically like the scratch and sniff stickers.
Uh huh.
It's it's Play-Doh. These like the fake food on the shelf, processed foods. They're basically Play-Doh with spray on flavoring. if you look at it that way. You
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
like if it says it's cheese, it's not cheese. It's cheese powder that has like 30 different ingredients. You know, even if you read like a sour cream and onion chip, like a Lay's, it doesn't say, it says sour cream flavor, you know, onion flavor. You know, it's very easy to dehydrate onions and dehydrate sour cream and make a powder and just sprinkle it on. But they have to go the extra mile of creating the fake, the fake flavor to put, and even the potatoes, they're grown, I guess, from Monsanto. So even the potatoes are fake. Seed oils are bad for you. The whole canola oil thing it's an industry within itself, like the De Beers family with the diamonds. The canola oil thing it's rapeseed oil, that comes from Canada, but because of the name, they do the mark because it wouldn't sell because of the name. It's rapeseed, so they market it as canola, which is Canadian oil, what it stands for. You know, so that's yeah, man. I went down the rabbit hole, man. Snickers bar is not even chocolate, man. It's Play-Doh with spray on flavoring. If you could look at it, that nothing in it. The peanuts is Monsanto. It's crazy, man.
Well, the hidden thing in all of it too is the pesticides. In my opinion, when I look at pesticides being sprayed on something as simple as the peanuts or the cocoa to grow it, that's going to get in the product, and it's never mentioned.
Did
It's
you
like,
know?
yeah,
I'm
right.
sorry.
It's
Yeah,
never
I'm
mentioned.
sorry, MD. Did you know
No,
that
no.
Monsanto? They how like the Gates Foundation, when they want to go like test their vaccines, are gonna take people
Well,
out. They
yeah,
go to
we got
like,
to be careful with the vaccine thing. We got to
oh,
just see
I'm sorry,
the
but I'm
guidelines.
saying like when these these evil oligarchs want to test this new medication, so they claim, and they go to like these third world countries, and they see how it wipes everyone out. Monsanto did a thing where they would go to places like they go to parts of Asia and go to parts of Africa, and they would offer these poor farmers, they'll disguise it as a better deal. Like, oh, you
Oh,
have a better yield.
or something like that.
You
You're saying like seeds?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
these fakes,
I've heard of something like that, and then something with the pesticides too. If they use
yeah,
certain pesticides,
bro.
it, yeah,
And I'm sorry, it's like a 360 deal. So
yeah, it's
once
really.
you
I've heard
start,
of farmers in India and stuff that ended
yeah,
themselves because they ended
bro,
owing money and they didn't
yeah,
know
I'm
what to
sorry, and
do.
it ruins the soil. So they
Yeah,
don't tell you the
exactly.
under.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
makes it
once you
harder to
stop,
grow. Harder to
yeah,
grow.
once you stop buying the seed from them, you already have like time in it. It ruins the soil forever. So you can't go back to
You
original,
have to like
natural.
replant something.
You have to. Yeah, it's like you're stuck in a contract for life with these guys, and it's the wickedest thing, man. It's evil.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Lieutenant Trans, what's up, man? He says, check out the link. These guys. Yeah, no, this is see, this is the deep stuff. It's like, and even in the midst of all of this, again, like what you said, man, it comes back to the clam, man. The
Mhm.
snail on the vent is so deep. I don't know if you really realize
Volcanic
how
snow.
how monumental you hit on that, man. I'm talking like
AMD.
got like on some Plato level type stuff because that's like when you said that, you think about it. Because see, I know about the deep sea vents and the
Yeah.
and the stuff. I did the research for the Human Origins books. You look at the life forms, and when you said that, it's sort of like you think about it, and it's like, yeah, what the heck is this clam thinking about? This snail on a vent on the
Yeah.
bottom of the ocean,
Yeah.
just basically pulling in elements or something, salt
Yeah.
or whatever this
Yeah.
thing.
It has no predators. It's
What
it's
the
safe where
heck?
it's at. It's by
Oh,
itself. It has a metal shell. Like, what is all of that for? Like, why does it have to be equipped with like, you know what I mean? It makes you question, like, why?
it's
You know
like,
what I
why
mean?
does
Like,
it even exist?
yeah, for
It's like
what?
when you get deep and you start to really think, you start to be like, to me personally, I'm like, what the heck? Existence
You, you,
is
you
it's
know,
so odd. Like you start to wonder, like, what the heck? This is. the coincidences, which we know aren't coincidences, the the computer alone, the fact that we can talk with other people all around the
Mhm.
world, right, and it share pictures and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I mean, this is
Mhm.
just I'm looking at it like we are underestimating the value of what we have because we could be doing so much more with this. Like
Listen,
there has to be other ways, and I'm glad that people are starting to see like, okay, knowledge and learning about stuff is very important because it's actually becoming less and less available. There's
mhm.
nobody. A lot of people have told me that there's not too many people that they can talk with about certain subjects.
Mhm.
Like the majority of mind numbing stuff, you can talk with anybody.
Mhm.
Um, the other stuff about where we're going, from the present state of living right now, and then that also gets into time, gets into what is this that we're in. I'm not really sure. Nobody can really answer that, and in a way I think it tells me it can be used as an indicator to see the honesty of a person, not to try to just say, oh, they're a liar or anything like that. It's to
Mhm.
say, even they don't know most of the time, or maybe we can fall back into this state where we actually think that we are doing something that's truthful and right, when if we really thought about it, we would see, wow, that's just the ego. The ego
Mhm.
is very, very tricky. It's
Mhm.
extremely tricky. It's like basically the joker that's on our shoulder, like just
Mhm.
there, waiting constantly to play a trick or to get us to play a trick on ourselves,
Mhm.
saying, yeah, you can't get over with that. And
Mhm.
it really makes me wonder because sometimes in life, um, you know, you go through stuff and you start to think, you start to say, man, is it written? Am I like that whole argument of, okay, what is this about? What is this about? Like looking at, see, and this is the thing, and I know I keep going back to it, but man, looking at the clam or the snail on the beach, it really gets me to wonder. There's something with that that's
Yeah.
part of the puzzle. There's
Yeah.
some I don't know what it is, but it's
Yeah.
definitely going to play out a significant role
Yeah.
because just thinking about that, it kind of
Mhm.
that alone can almost even point towards some type of simulation thing. Because when I
Mhm.
think, I'm saying to myself, what the heck? So, what is that snail doing?
Mhm.
That snail is there, or that clam is with a metal shell, and it is on the bottom of the ocean.
Mhm.
And I just don't get it. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, why this? What is this thing experiencing?
Mhm.
What is the purpose of this experience?
Mhm.
It's on the bottom of a ocean sea, deep sea vent with a metallic shell
Mhm.
just being. And yeah, it's very odd, man. It's very, very odd when I look at that, when I look at other stuff going throughout the ocean, coming
Mhm.
onto land, air.
Listen, even the way I started looking at other creatures, right? Like, so people always think about aliens as the grays or these things with big eyes. And I always tell people, I'm like, no, there's aliens here. And I explain underwater life. When you think about an octopus, right? It's a head with fingers coming out of its neck. And then
Yeah.
to top it off, it has a beak like a bird. You know what I mean? It could have teeth. There's almost every other fish has regular, fish-like teeth. Not this thing. It has a beak, right? And on top of that, it's intelligent. And then when you search up the cephalopod family, right, you have its cousin, the cuttlefish, which camouflages and generates electricity. And you're like, what are all these special features about? You know what I mean? Like, why you got to do all that? You're already an intelligent ocean life form. You know what I mean? Now you could camouflage and you could generate, you know, electricity. Like, what's that about? You know what I mean? Why don't you just, eat your prey like a normal fish? You know, and it makes you question, like what is that about? Like, why does that exist? It's a head. It's a head with fingers coming out of its neck. Like if you just break it down to like, the simple anatomy, it's a head with fingers coming out of its neck. You know, uh, the as above, so below thing, when I look at like things like, crustaceans, crab, underwater spider, you know, a lobster is an underwater scorpion, eels, snakes, you know, uh, fish, they have beaks, birds have beaks, fishes have scales, birds have feathers, but they're, even when you look at the design of a fish and a bird, they're quite similar. The head shape, no ears, the tails, instead of having wings, one has fins, but it's like the same placement, you know?
Well,
You know, uh,
if you look at the bones, though, it's different. The bird's bones are much lighter for flight.
no,
So, like,
oh
yeah.
yeah. No, I
So
was
you
gonna
have,
say, even just the idea of like birds flying in the air, and when you look at how a fish swims, it's basically the same motion. It's like flying underwater. You know,
it
it's
does have a similarity. They used to call that homology, which
yeah.
is similarities in appendages. So, like the hand is
Hmm.
similar to the hand on the top of a bat's wing, like the claws. So
Right.
they try to say, okay, the fingers, the same thing with, like you were saying, the wings of the bird and the
Hmm.
flippers of certain animals. But now they're trying to change it. They well, I think they have already changed the definition of homology to something about common ancestry. So now they bring in the unscientific notion that the fact that we see a similarity between wings and fins and hands and claws,
Hmm.
that means that there was some ancestor that they all come from. So they,
Oh,
so now when you see stuff like that in science, this is very important because if people aren't up on that, they'll miss it. And next thing you
hmm,
know, they'll be saying, "Oh no, look, all of this stuff comes from a single hand ancestor." And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, well, what's the name of that ancestor? And
right.
I've had people from other shows get angry. And to me, actually, I don't find it really funny, but it's concerning when sometimes it can be humorous when you see
Hmm.
somebody get triggered and it's like, wait a minute, I'm just asking you a question.
Yeah.
You're telling me about this common ancestor that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
and you're acting like it does exist. That's not science. And it'll be stuck on that hill, and they'll
Hmm.
be willing to die on that hill. And every hill is a hill they're willing to die on. That's a false hill. It's to say, okay, they don't know about the corruption. So if
Hmm.
we were to talk with law enforcement, I mean, I used to be in the military. If anybody who was in the military or in the law enforcement or even in the working in a store or whatever, they're going to tell you that there's a level of corruption. There's definitely going to be people stealing stuff. And when you get into higher branches of control, government control branches to
Hmm.
control a population, you get into more serious types of corruption, which is what we see going all the way up into politics.
Hmm.
And this is something that I notice is not really talked about with the average person because they don't want to talk about it. They're to a point where they're entertained, and that, I think they've lost the it's kind of like Dr. Suzuki was saying, everybody's sitting on the bus and they're arguing over their seat. They want a better seat. The bus is headed straight off of a cliff. So you got who knows how long, a mile, 2 miles, but it's headed toward a cliff. And for people to be arguing about getting a better seat, or they're angry about where they're sitting instead of saying, where's the bus going?
Hmm.
And when I spoke with a guy, he said that he goes, that hill, that cliff has a name, and it's called Seneca Cliff, I think from a Roman or Greek historian, saying that the downfall of something is always rapid compared to the climbing, to building, the creation of the civilization compared to the downfall. and which on many things we see that happen. It can happen quick. Sometimes it can last. If something is built properly, I've noticed that you look at some older things and they last. And just the whole light bulb uh, thing, to know that they made the light bulb less durable. So now light bulbs, I think they still have one burning from, like, I think 100 years ago, like 105 or something like that. So this light bulb, it's showing you that if you experiment with incandescent light bulbs, you can get them to burn for decades. So the right making of that, they can do that. But nobody needed to buy light bulbs anymore. So they had to get together and make a deal like, okay, look, nobody can make a light bulb that lasts over 2,000 hours. So that's the deal. Now we make sure we gave them so much, and we control the market. And that's how basically everything technologically is controlled. The fact that now incandescent light bulbs are illegal to basically produce in the US, as far as from what I last checked. I think it was 2011 when they passed the law.
Well, of course. I mean, it's conflict of interest. How this. It's money, money, money with these people. So it's like kind of like Tesla did the whole. What is it? The coil.
Mm-hmm.
They had to get him out of there. Even the guy who did the what is it? The cars that run on water, and he's been missing for how long? You know, it's like
Oh,
these
yeah, they
this
got it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, these monsters, man, they want to keep draining you because remember, and we're just talking about invention,
Mm-hmm.
but the effect of these inventions, right? They improve the overall quality of the human life experience, which takes off burdens, in certain areas of people's lives, right? So if you could just power your car with water, and water is available everywhere, it removes the need for gas and having to constantly pay for gas all the time, which
Mm-hmm.
removes a bit of stress from your life. You know what I mean? The Tesla thing, the free electricity, it's like it removes you having to pay Con Edison every month. So these people want to keep you in a state of you know uh stress, worry about the next thing and the next thing and the next. You already have rent to pay, and you got to pay a light bill, you got to pay gas, you got to pay. It keeps you in a constant a down mood, and that down mood is the same thing that fuels the rat race. And not to go off, because I know this is a different channel, but it even comes full circle in the black pill, you know, the buffer class, and using these guys who are unaware of what the black pill is, and they didn't meet the lottery, but they constantly have this idea that I could be Chad too if I get this Ferrari. So these guys spend a lot of their time trying to focus on money, trying to focus on a house and a this, and basically you're turning yourself into a trick, to get what Chad gets for free. If that comparison makes sense. It's like the system is constantly milking. They want to keep you in a state of destitute to where you're constant, because
Uh-huh.
finances affects your mental health too. Like say if
It does.
something comes up with family and somebody gets sick, that's another bill, another expense you have to pay. So on top of God knows if you have kids or whatever else going on in your life. So it feeds the monster, keeping someone. And it's like the when I heard about they doing these sacrifices with the babies and the adrenochrome, it's like the everyday version of that. If I could keep you in a down mood, in the buffer class, in the rat race, it's that energy of despair feeds the monster. You know what I mean? Even though you're not unalive yet, but it's like it breaks you down, because stress could open the door for illness too, cancers and things of that nature. So it's like another whammy. you know you get so overwhelmed by the daily, you know what I mean, the daily struggles of life that you might even end up making yourself sick. which also feeds the monster. You know, it's
The
crazy, man.
psychosomatic, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to be very careful because the mind is that powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Mind, and that should make us wonder that we're not even the mind that we think we are. We're something behind it controlling the mind.
Yeah.
So it's like how many back seats do we actually occupy? Because we could say, oh, like playing a game of chess, you think you're the king, and then you realize, no, I'm the person moving the king on the board. So I'm above the king, and then who I am at the board seems to be a vessel controlled by something else. The fact that we can do one thing or another, that's part of the argument of having free will. The other part is saying, what if I say I'm going to pick this up with my right hand, but I decide to pick it up with my left hand? Does that say that I changed my direction with free will? Or was I always going to pick it up with my left hand? Just saying that, okay, I'm going to do it with my right and I'm going to change my mind. What if that was always the plan from the beginning?
Mm.
So that whole free will thing is really deep, because when I think about that, I say, man, that's deep. And as much as I think, well, I'll do something different, it always comes back to, but what if that was part of the plan?
Mm.
So it's just putting it in parameters to where we can analyzing it, like kind of like looking at something under a microscope to get a better look at it. We're looking at a psychological question in that manner. So now we're getting smarter and wiser if we use it properly, the knowledge that we're gaining from looking at the psychological question of
Mm-hmm.
why somebody wants to control the way we think. What
It's
what
kind
what?
of,
Mhm.
I was gonna say, it's kind of like the Truman Show, what you just said. It's like you have you have your own life, right? Your own chess piece, your own existence. But there's a board, like there's a game going on where there's already presets. You know, there's already presets and things in place, that are set up depending on whatever option, like you said, the left hand or the right hand,
Mhm.
and whatever you choose, there's already like things set up in place, with other, other things behind that, that kind of to keep you in line,
Mhm.
until you reach a certain state of understanding where you're like Truman, you realize there's a camera everywhere. you
Mhm.
know Even if you thought, like, the everyday conversation with the mailman was a unique conversation, or you how's Tom doing, or how's the kid, you think these are like, these are your options, these are unique experiences, just to come and find out these are orchestrated. It's like whether you say good morning or you don't say good morning, there's already like a preset to that, you know
Yeah,
kind of
that's
like Truman, like his whole life was like, orchestrated from the beginning with the water and the, you know, programming that fear of water into him, through the lie, so that he wouldn't have the bravery to go and realize the whole world was a stage. You know what I mean?
and it's kind of deep because when I think about the Truman thing, what if another like type of scenario would be he had the courage to do that, but in the preset no free will or free will doesn't exist world, it would be where everything is planned out to where that's exactly the way it was supposed to unfold. And part of me says the way things do unfold, why isn't that the right way? Like I think Alan Watt, the philosopher, put it as, he goes, did you ever see a cloud, right? Like a natural cloud. Funny that I have to say that now. Form incorrectly. Every cloud in the sky is formed correctly. Every wave that crashes up upon the shore, it crashes upon the shore correctly. There's
Right.
no incorrect wave to say, oh, that didn't look right. The wave crashes upon the shore perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at just that perfection in something that is so imperfect, that's the craziest thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what could be more imperfect than a wave splashing up on a rocky shore that has
Mm-hmm.
so many nooks and crannies? And the funny thing is, too, it has life that hides, it ducks as soon as the wave comes, and then it
Yeah.
pops up right after. It's amazing when you
Yeah.
look at some of these, yeah, the thing, and you say to yourself, like, you got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to overlook that.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to we overlook it all the time. The fact that we got like a microbiome living on us, like we have a
Hold on, MD.
whole.
Can I come back? I have to take a call.
Yeah, take your time. All right, brother.
All right.
Yeah, that was a great conversation, man. Definitely had some good stuff to talk about. I was going through, earlier today, plugged back in, into the chair, as we all have to plug back into society sometimes. But that question, what comes next, is always there. It's always there. It makes me wonder. It really does. It makes me wonder, like, man, um, nobody can answer this question. Nobody can answer the question of what comes next. What comes next? And every day I'll think about it. And it's not to be like some people will think about it in a doomeristic way. I'm thinking about it in a way like, wow, it's like not balancing on a ledge where you can fall off because, you're just analyzing it. You're saying, look, I started analyzing death. Let's just say I live for 40 more years. And I can say, well, 40 years ago, I started analyzing, knowing, like being very honest about the realism that I'm not going to be here physically one day. And with the recordings and stuff like this, it's amazing because people can hear what I'm talking about way after I've passed, especially if it happens sooner than later. So, tomorrow or something. So it's like, oh, he has some stuff, which I don't think it's the best of my making. That's why I've been working so much on this Human Origins book. But it's something that's out there that's talking about ideas that I don't think is really touched upon, especially the conversation that we were having about existence, about life in general. Like you look at life in all parts of the world and you think about these beings, it would seem to be beings. When I try to figure out and decipher and explain like what some people bring, that this is the beautiful thing about sharing information with people, that when Reed came on, he definitely dropped it with the clam, the snail on the snail on the vent, on the deep sea vent. You think about that, there's some indicator there. There's some indicator. You can't just tell me that's just there by chance. And then knowing that it's not there by chance, it's like, well, what is it? Why? Why is it? Why is the snail on the deep sea vent? Why? Why is it? And that's a deep question. That's something that people don't really talk about. I mean, honestly, Alexis, I'm not sure. Like that, I think that there's so many things that could exist, but it could exist in a different way. So, like what we thought, like back in the day, could have been something, um, like uh like something that we thought was supernatural that turned out not to really be supernatural. Yeah, I could definitely see that, something like that, to where we see that could happen. But also I think that there has to be something beyond, of course, anything that we can imagine right now. So the fact that we can imagine supernatural stuff, And we see that there are many accounts from many other people, but we see that there's also some type of scientific basis that we do see a non-physical, an invisible world that is physical. So things that are invisible but these are things we can measure, and we can measure the effects of. And it does make me wonder about the radioactive stuff from like that, because is that measuring the effects of it from where? From somewhere else? Like, what is that? What is that radioactivity that we see that has been reported in scientific manuals about certain substances? Uh, it makes you wonder. Yeah, it really makes you wonder. The I don't know. I wonder really what is we need to define evil too. So like to say, okay, evil versus good. What are the different levels, or what can it be categorized as maybe something that is, but can be used in different ways, like a spoon or fire or uh, a certain type of tool, can be used in two different ways. A knife, cuts both ways. A rake, or something that can be used in more than one way. So, but also something that's made not to be used in a bad way. Or serial enders just good people by these. I mean, honestly, man, that's a deep one, because I do see them trying to make these movies and try to push that agenda. And I wonder if them making these movies are trying to make the movies to either normalize this stuff, because I don't think it's normal. I think you definitely got some. I think I wonder if it be two things. Can it be that some of them are influenced? I'm not just saying that they're, it's a good person influence. It's just a person, people can be influenced. Not saying that it's, somebody that's it could be somebody that's good. It's saying that it could be anybody basically influenced by something non-physical, right? Or it could be something else. So it could be both. It's possible. I mean, I would think that it could be both plus even a third, because there's always things that we can't think of. And that's really just looking at it as a realistic way to say, okay, there's always that unknown factor that we don't know about. We don't have to remember it all the time, because it's funny, because if we don't remember it, we feel more comfortable. We feel like, okay, we know everything, but we know that we don't know everything. We know that. We know that we don't know everything. But if it makes us feel comfortable, we'll just say that, hey, you know what? It's people, and it could be people that are influenced, or it could be something else that we're not sure what it is. Some type of something on a molecular level. So now we're dealing with a molecule level in the physical world, as opposed to what would be considered a type of possession, or even and this is more of a scientific. It's not as fancy of an explanation like the demonic or spiritual type of thing, but like the Wi-Fi type of wireless radio control that Dr. Jose Delgado was working on with the bull, something like to that avail, something that may actually have an electromagnetic type of an effect that could do something to thoughts. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. But definitely I wouldn't put it past some people just being, I mean, it could be both. It could be some people that are just straight dangerous, that I don't know if it's genetic. I don't know if it's something that happened to them, because sometimes things can traumatize somebody, and then that's it. We see this with animals sometimes. I mean, people get pushed to that limit. And then there's also times where, yeah, it could be something that's influencing, definitely something scientifically, but also something that might be unexplainable. So, as far as science goes, it can't be explained through science, but it does happen. We just don't know why it happens. And we know that anything that seems to be like magic is really just, it's like a form of undiscovered science. Not to say that magical things don't exist, but if eventually you can figure out what is the science of the magical event, you start to see that it's undiscovered science, basically. It's something that hasn't been explained yet. And there's always going to be the unknown. See, that's the thing. People, I don't know if they get worried about, oh my goodness, you're solving too much of the unknown. Like they want to save some of the unknown. Like knowing stuff, right, is too much, because you might know everything. You know, it's just when you think of the excuses of not to learn or not to further intelligence, to say, what are you afraid of using up the unknown? The unknown can never get used up. The unknown will always be there. You're always going to have enough unknown. You don't got to be greedy with thinking the unknown is going to be used up. You know, we don't have to put it in the Rockefeller oil type of category, acting like there's a shortage of the unknown. No, the unknown is there. The unknown is always going to be there, and it is going to be there in an amount that is infinitely more than the known. The known is very, very finite. You have some that are facts, the breathing underwater, stuff like that. But then a lot of stuff are changing facts, age, specifically related to time. And we see that. We start to say, yeah, some of them are related to time in different ratios, days, months, years, decades, quarter of a lifetime, half of a lifetime. You think about that. Yeah. Decades, and then, yeah, half of a lifetime, quarter, half, almost a whole lifetime. When you look at certain things, and to think that people will go that long and still be in a state of not knowing is kind of, in a way, being trapped in a mental box. It kind of shows me more and more why thinking outside of the box is so important. It's like exercising in a way that's somebody would go on a hike through nature, as opposed to running in the treadmill in the gym. The hike through nature with your mind, where there are no rigid lines, there's no rules. You're just climbing up the side of like a trail, and it just feels better. It feels more like, oh, okay, this is natural. The sounds, and also not being in a room with a ceiling. Yeah, the ceiling, that's another thing that people talk about. The ceiling is something that keeps people, it keeps them stuck in it's a containment unit. I've heard people talk about the square, like the cube, like being in the cube and stuff like that. I call it invasion of the grid squares, because everything is, we do see that, rectangle, stuff like that. But we also see other shapes. But in nature, we don't see we see something totally different. We see shaped lines going in different directions that you don't see normally. And it's always surprising. Always surprising. It's animated, the wind, the feel. I mean, it really nature's on another level when I think about it. It definitely I think I had a yeah, the pod, man, coming out the pod. It really makes me think. It really makes me think. And then you wonder, it's like being in the pod. And it's like, okay, where do you go? What is there something beyond the pod? Something beyond the pod. There has to be something beyond the pod. Is it the matrix? Is it the matrix that is beyond the pod? I'm not sure. I mean, it's a possibility that it could be. I'm just still searching to try to see what exactly it is. Is it consciousness, spirituality? Some people call it soul. What if all three of those are different things that are not physical? Could be that, and more, and more. So it could be that and more when I think about it. It just, you wonder, you start to wonder, like, okay, what is next? What comes next? What actually could come next? And to know that anything I think of is actually something that is probably not going to happen. Like, what's the probability of anyone being able to even guess what might happen next, or guess what it is that we're already in right now? It makes you wonder. Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder when you think about it. It's like, man, this is life itself is a trip. It's definitely rowing the boat merrily down the stream, because life is just a dream. Clearly. But yeah, it's a little past 12. Get ready to is this the other background? All right, yeah, that's the other background. Yeah. I had this was the thumbnail from a picture used a while back that represents something to do with the lake. I think it's the river Styx that people cross to go from one side to the other, living to the non-living. And notice I don't use the word dead, I use the word non-living. So living and non-living. Non-living seems different from dead. I mean, there has to be different classifications and levels, instead of just keeping us in a state of Coke and Pepsi, or Burger King and McDonald's. There's such a long variety of different things to explain using words. And we see that there's also a containment of trying to keep people in a certain part of the vocabulary. Yeah, it just yeah, think about it. It's the whole vocabulary thing with secret words. That's the whole thing about basically saying, hey, you know what? There is a language within a language. There is a way to look through certain words and read if there's a spell, because we can spell words. We can respell words. I mean, matter of fact, we could respell this word here. That word is respelled, right? President can be respelled. So that gives somebody the power to respell. Respelling president with the IS and spelling the word is pretend, it shows the power of being able to respell. It shows like, look, we have the power and I can respell that word. Let's see if there's any way to respell it that will show if there's something hidden. And we see that. We see that with the bigger words too, the bigger phrases. I mean, this right here is just beyond anything. The fact that it rephrases into elite hustlers and the deception really makes you wonder. Walt Disney, but secret words is a real thing within the English language that a lot of people, again, it's easy to overlook. It's very easy to overlook. But yeah, it's a little past 12:30 here in New York. Appreciate everybody stopping by, man. Had a great conversation with Reed. That was good. Hopefully talk to him again soon. Thank everybody in the chat, man. Thank you guys, everybody that came on the panel. Take care. Have a great night. We'll talk soon.